Seeing this, the subordinates asked their master what he was doing. The main heroine was also scared at that moment. After all, she didn't understand what the man might do to her. Due to a small child's defensive reaction, the main heroine immediately started crying. Continuing her intense tantrum, the girl screamed Nini's name. The nanny immediately rushed to the master and addressed him. At that very moment, the man asked why the girl was so light. After all, he remembered that his youngest son had been much heavier. Grant told him that the princess was still very small at this point. He added that he had first hugged his own son when the boy was already 8 years old. While the uncle was shifting the girl, the lollipop fell from her hands. As a result, it rolled across the floor and lay there. The main heroine cried even harder and now kept saying that her candy had fallen. Right after those words, the man bent down and picked up the candy. Then he handed it back to the girl and said she shouldn't play with her food. The little girl immediately resumed eating the candy, putting it back in her mouth. So she thought, had he really given her the candy after all? While still in the man's arms, she thought about how she had now reunited with her uncle. A moment later, he asked where the little girl had heard the name Ataida. The heroine remembered that all this had happened in her past life. Back then, the subjugation of the fire dragon Ataita had been linked to other countries. It seemed that everything had been done in secret. The girl had also heard about the operation's success. At the time, the emperor had used a harsh strategy. But to the man, the little girl claimed that she had heard her uncle had already caught that dragon. The duke was shocked by this and asked whom she had been talking to. In response, the little girl claimed that she didn't remember anything. Then she thought that since she had said so much already, now he would take her to the temple himself. She remembered that her uncle had been wounded in battle because of the emperor's actions and soon died afterward. The man addressed his subordinate named Hatton. The latter asked what the master wanted. The man then asked how often the princess and the emperor interacted with each other. The subordinate said that, according to Mr. Rubbs, this happened about once a month. He then asked if the master believed the emperor knew everything about them. The duke immediately declared that it was true, and the emperor had learned about their plans. The subordinates replied that this was completely classified. It seemed the leak had happened because someone had betrayed them. The man wondered why the imperial family had been told about Ataita. After all, it was strange that the princess had heard about it. Then he stated that someone had probably mentioned it in front of her on purpose. The heroine sat in silence and listened to everything. He also recalled his past life when the emperor had told her all of this. Now the duke declared that he was very interested in finding out who the traitor was. Because of everything, it turned out that he wouldn't be able to live a long life. A subordinate told his master that he would contact headquarters at the first opportunity. Meanwhile, the duke stood and pondered how a 3-year-old princess could remember the emperor's conversations so precisely, without missing a single detail. Then he informed Grant that he would take the princess to the temple and that everything should be prepared. The subordinate responded that he would take care of it. He also addressed the girl's nanny, instructing her to handle the princess's luggage. The woman agreed, but remarked that the princess was so small. In response, the man added that she would be coming with them too. Upon hearing this, the heroine said she didn't want to go. At the same time, she thought about what he was doing. After all, it seemed like they couldn't travel together with Nini.
The man realized that he needed to appease the girl so she would agree. At that moment, he took out several lollipops and handed them to the girl. She immediately focused all her attention on them. At the same time, she wondered where he had gotten so many candies. She also thought that if he believed he could tempt her with sweets, he was mistaken. She then tried to throw a tantrum again, but in the end, her childish instincts won over, and delighted, she grabbed all the candies. A moment later, the Duke announced that from now on, Willow would protect the princess on her way to the temple. He then turned to his subordinates and ordered them to follow his command. He also informed the nanny that he would be waiting in the carriage. She bowed and assured him that she would take care of everything. After some time, the system updated, and the list of people who had entered the chat showed one participant, Berg, who was the Duke. However, nothing was written in the chat, which meant his thoughts about her were empty. A few minutes later, a message appeared stating that he thought the girl was too light and that her nutrition needed to be taken care of. Upon reading this, the heroine thought that this person was rather strange. 5 days had passed since that day. The heroine was now traveling in the carriage. Everything had gone as expected. Everyone had armed themselves and set out on the journey. For a whole 5 days, the heroine had been unable to see her uncle. However, despite this, she didn't feel bored or lonely. During the stops, when the carriage was being tended to, The subordinates offered the girl various treats, but they didn't insist that she try everything, as there were also dried meats prepared specifically for her. The little girl, with her adorable face, replied that she only wanted candies. Her responses charmed everyone around her. They discussed how the princess was becoming more beautiful by the day. But then again, she had always been like this. The heroine wondered if there was any way to break through her uncle's indifference. After all, even his subordinates considered her very beautiful. In the system, a list of chat participants was displayed. There were 21 people. Knight Ted was dazzled by her beauty and wrote in the chat that the girl was so beautiful he felt like breaking a tree. The other knights were also captivated by her beauty. One message questioned whether pinching her cheek would be considered an insult. Still, she thought that such thoughts were strange to cross her mind. Dave believed that she was the princess of his heart. Then the system displayed 2 notifications. The girl had received 85 interest points and 45 interest points as well. The heroine closely examined the system window that kept appearing before her. She realized that this wasn't the same as when she was streaming. It turned out there were no sponsors here, but more importantly, she could read their thoughts through this system. Now the heroine didn't care much, though she still didn't fully understand it. She was pleased that she was loved. Suddenly, a man appeared, shouting for everyone to clear the way immediately. This person was a magician wearing a hood, approaching the heroine. As soon as he reached her, he addressed the princess. Meanwhile, in the imperial estate, things were quite noisy. A bloodied man lay on the floor, speaking with the emperor. The emperor remarked that the man had left the castle, but now everything was clear. Then, the emperor kicked the man lying on the ground, calling him nothing more than a useless piece of trash. He then ordered him not to return unless he brought the princess. At that very moment, an unfamiliar magician was running toward the heroine. The little girl looked at him intently, wondering who he was and what he wanted from her. The stranger used his magical staff to cast a spell. Instantly, a piece of cake appeared before the heroine. The magician stated that the princess needed proper nourishment. Then, he greeted the princess and asked her to look at the delicious cake. A female magician explained that the cake was a strawberry pie, a specialty of the nearby city of Denba. The knights escorting the heroine started discussing that it would take about a day to reach that city. Someone responded that it was indeed the case, and that this was some kind of magical crime. Because of this, the female magician commented that magic was wonderful, but should be used in moderation. The heroine addressed her by name, Evina, and asked her to hug her. The system registered a new person joining the chat, Evina, the magician. The knights wondered why their mothers hadn't blessed them with mana. Then someone stated that she was their princess, and they should treat her with sincerity. A message from Evina appeared in the heroine's chat, saying that these filthy people were touching their beautiful princess with their dirty hands. After that, the system recorded that the girl had received 45 interest points. The heroine thought she had heard that this magician had mysophobia, and now she was certain of it. She also suspected that the system's thought window appeared whenever someone looked at her. But now she was curious why she considered herself a streamer when she didn't even know how to communicate with people properly. Maybe one day she would learn. The magician asked the princess if she liked the taste. The little girl smiled and said it was delicious and that Evina was very kind. After these words, Evina's arrogance grew even more. She began wondering how she could live among such filthy people. The heroine continued eating the cake when suddenly her fork slipped from her hand. Just as it was about to hit the ground, a man caught it. The person who saved the heroine's strawberry was the Duke. The little girl immediately burst into tears of joy, relieved that her strawberry was safe. The man immediately picked the girl up in his arms and stated that everyone had grown tired over the past 5 days. He also remarked that the girl had managed to persuade his subordinates. In response, the girl protested that she hadn't done anything like that. The magician watched and thought that her lord looked so adorable with the princess. The Duke carefully listened to the girl's story and looked at her. Then he simply picked up the little girl, held her in his arms, and pressed her against him. After that, they all continued moving forward, with the princess and the others following behind the man. He felt it and immediately turned around to look. But all the people quickly pretended as if they were doing nothing and were just resting. The Duke continued moving, but his subordinates followed him as well. The man felt it again and turning around asked what they were doing. They replied that they were just resting a little. After all, everyone needed a short break. Their leader looked at them strangely. At the same time, he thought that they had never behaved like this before, and he was curious about what was happening. Then he took the princess and seated her. Right after that, he took a pie from a subordinate and brought it to the girl. After that, addressing the heroine, He said that, unfortunately, she would have to eat in a slightly dusty place. But the girl replied that it was fine. Just a few moments passed, and the plate was already empty. The little girl immediately exclaimed that she had eaten everything. The man said that if she had finished eating, then he would simply sit next to her. But the heroine asked him to hug her.
The man hesitated, so the girl asked again for a hug. His subordinates behind him began whispering. How could he be so indifferent in such a situation? They really said that he was so cold-blooded. Suddenly, the Duke heard this and looked at them. In response, they quickly turned around and ran away. The girl, in her mind, thought that she agreed with them, but right now, none of that was important to her. At this moment, everything felt quite nice. The Duke provided a new carriage and also prepared the most delicious food for everyone. Additionally, the wizards helped everyone cope with motion sickness. The heroine remembered that in her second life, she wasn't given any food when traveling with the knights. Back then, only her nanny protected her and told the princess that she would always take care of her. So it turned out that the Duke was much better than the imperial family. And in the future, the heroine wanted it to always be this way. Suddenly, the little girl looked at her chat and realized that her uncle wasn't there anymore. She wondered why he had entered and left so abruptly. Looking at the man, the heroine wondered if he had lost interest in her. Suddenly, her uncle turned to her and handed her a lollipop, the one she loved. The heroine was very happy with such a gift and noticed that it was indeed a lollipop. The man, with a strange look, stated that she was the lollipop. Then he added that he had fed her sweets. Now, they needed to calculate the cost of all the food she had eaten. The little girl wondered why he suddenly started talking about paying for food. Was he really that stingy? Then she asked the man what he meant by the cost of food, all while thinking that the lollipop was so delicious and that maybe she should listen to the roses. The Duke asked if she had seen such a book with the Emperor. Suddenly, Grant appeared from behind the man and greeted the princess. Then he used magic and said that he would now show the book. At that moment, from a glowing crystal, a book with various patterns appeared. The girl was quite surprised by such magic and watched it closely. Then the heroine began to examine the book more carefully, trying to remember what it was. After a while, she concluded that it was probably a name book. A name book is like a biographical dictionary in which the imperial family recorded the names of outstanding people. It contained records of the year and the talents of these individuals. The protection of the sun, passed down from generation to generation, helped the imperial family. The reason why these talents appeared: eyes that could see talent. This was a story about how the first emperor was born under the light of the beast. He received the blessing of Minerva, the goddess of wisdom, and the child's hair turned golden. Because of this, there was a high probability that children would be born with talent and as blondes. But the heroine herself was born without talent and not blonde at all. Now the heroine wondered, if someone had such eyes, they could immediately recognize another's talent. That meant her father also had such eyes. The emperor had to fill out this book. It was a duty given by God. The heroine's uncle possessed this talent, though only a little, and she remembered it well. At that moment, the Duke was addressing the little girl, asking if she had seen it. The heroine immediately stated that she had indeed seen it. This response completely shocked the man. The girl thought that she remembered everything written in that book. After all, countless talented people recorded in that book were later simply killed. She thought that she remembered absolutely everything written there. But what should she do now? Then she looked at her uncle and decided she needed to think. The man also watched the girl carefully, waiting to hear what she would say next. The girl thought that he would probably take her to the estate. And after all, if he took her there, she could eat lots of sweets. Still, the girl couldn't decide what to say next. The Duke asked again if she was sure she had seen it, to which the little girl firmly answered that she definitely had. At the same time, she decided to make him want to do it. Pointing at the book that had appeared from the crystal, the girl said that it was darker in color than this book. She also mentioned that it was quite large. The man asked if she had read it, and the girl replied that she had. Immediately after that, the man asked her to look. At the same time, he instructed his subordinate to perform some magical tricks. Before the girl's eyes, a lot of pastries and various types of cakes appeared at once. She was very happy about this and stared at them. The man said that if she told him everything, all these cakes would belong only to her. Meanwhile, in his mind, he thought that although he didn't have high hopes, he still needed at least some information. After all, the secret of conquering a Taita was leaking out. Then the Duke drew the girl's attention. He told her that he was about to show her some people. She would need to say if she recognized anyone. The main heroine stared intently and wondered if he would take her away if she told him everything. After all, she wanted to live among people who loved her. But he added that if she exceeded 100, he would give her a coupon. His subordinate was about to say something. The boss immediately looked at him and he shut his mouth. Then the man added that for every coupon she received, he would give her a cake. The girl agreed, and the two business partners shook hands. She was overjoyed, thinking about how much she loved all those cakes. Grant addressed the princess and caught her attention. He asked the girl to first look at the first person. Upon seeing him, she immediately thought that she knew him well. It was one of the subordinates. In her past life, he was the one who tormented and manipulated her. The man asked if the little girl had seen him before. The main heroine replied that, of course, she had. Then she repeated once again that she had seen him and it was the truth. But she also wondered what would happen if they didn't believe her. In her second life, no one ever believed her, even when she told the absolute truth. Now, she was worried. What if he thought she was lying? But it was the truth. Suddenly, the man praised her and said they could continue. At the same time, he placed his hand on her head in a fatherly manner. Right after that, he handed her the first well-earned cake. Because of this, the girl immediately beamed with a smile and was delighted. Grant's subordinate also smiled at this, amused by the little girl's adorable face. After that, they decided to continue. The man asked the princess about the next person he showed her. Some time had passed since they began. The girl was already feeling full, and there was an endless amount of sweets around her. She wondered if her uncle really thought she could be useful. At the same time, the man was watching the little girl closely, deep in thought. The main heroine found all of this quite strange. Everything felt so unusual that she felt uneasy. The Duke stated that if he took her to the estate, what would he do with her there? After all, it seemed that she didn't have any particularly important information. His subordinate asked if he hadn't said he would take her. But the man noted that it was just one of the possible options. Grant added that he could think this way because the prophecy was completely incorrect, but it turned out that nothing was left. The man noted that he didn't even know if it was worth asking anymore. His subordinate remarked that it might be best to end it here. The little girl was sitting in her nanny's arms. The Duke's subordinate turned to her and asked if she could take one last look at this. There was nothing to be afraid of, and she could answer freely. After that, the Duke would give her another cake. The girl replied, "Another cake? But there are already so many." Then she noticed that her uncle was very scary because of his menacing look. The man and his subordinate immediately exchanged glances. Then the Duke realized there was nothing he could do and let out a deep sigh. He then asked for forgiveness, explaining that it was an important conversation, which was why he might have seemed so intimidating. After that, he politely asked if she could say anything else, as it was a request. Upon hearing this, the heroine immediately agreed. Grant thanked the princess for this. A moment later, he showed her a man and asked if she had met him before.